Hi, everyone. I'm Shaheen from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Irina Cardos, Global Marketing Communications Manager for global technology firm ABB. Thanks so much for joining us, Irina.
Thank you for having me, Shaheen.
Yeah. So for some context, like ABB is a huge global company. You've got like over 90,000 employees like around the world, and it's based in Zurich, right?
Yeah, Switzerland.
We
have more than 130 years as history, more than 110,000 employees, and more than 100 countries where we're part of. So
where you're operating at, but you're based in Romania. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm based in Bucharest, Romania.
How did you end up working from Romania for a company in Switzerland?
I'm from Bucharest. I'm from Romania. I've always worked here with some periods in other countries, just exchanges, either professionally or educational wise. But doing this global, being part of this global team, doing marketing communications that are global doesn't really matter where you are. So it's irrelevant not only to the current context, but it's also irrelevant to the line of work that you do. You just have to be there for all the time zones around the globe. So it's a good fit, so to say.
Well, so maybe you could tell us a bit about your background and how you got into these kind of global marketing roles.
So I graduated from two universities, a political science one and an international economics. And I just bundled them in a management and governance master's degree. So you wouldn't say I got to be global marketing communications, right? But while I was in university, I started working in the business media, and firstly as an editor, and over the years worked my way up as an editor-in-chief. And the business and media environment strongly connected with events organizing, marketing and sales for the magazine. So I just started slowly my marketing communication career. The background definitely helped and made it possible. I had a very good grasp, a good hands-on grasp of the whole end-to-end customer journey, back-end capabilities, because I was doing execution from day one. And from there, I just slowly started to gain expertise and actually practicing it firstly with small accounts, then with bigger accounts, and then at the beginning locally, then regionally, and for 4 years now globally.
Mm-hmm. What made you decide to go from publishing into the corporate world?
Well, I was publishing in the corporate world. So my first function as an editor-in-chief was for Businesswoman magazine. So I had a very good connection. I was doing interviews with CEOs, presidents, managing partners. So it was really interesting. It gave me a very wide view of why things are happening and how they're happening. Except for what you actually get to publish, the whole interview behind. So you have very good knowledge. And I was impressed and I was attracted to it. I really wanted to go more in depth and to gain expertise in one specific domain that would bundle also my skills, because I couldn't be an engineer now. Too late for that.
Yeah. Cool. So you wanted to keep building on your strengths. So could you tell us more about what you do now? Like, what's a typical day at work like for you, and what's your areas of responsibility as a global marketing communications manager?
So a typical day, I think it's like for everyone right now in this context, but for us, it was even before, for us in the global team, it was even before the COVID situation. And it's a typical day for everyone, I guess, managing a lot of calls, to-do lists and emails, but practically it actually means building relations, discovering the organization continuously, developing content, managing expectations for that content and everything that's going to bring. Very, very good proactive communication, because being remote, if you don't proactively create communication, it doesn't happen. So you don't just bump into your colleagues at coffee or at lunchtime, and good stakeholder involvement. And that's not only internal. So I'm not just talking about internal communication. It's also external with agencies, third parties, customers when it's the case. So stakeholders can mean from local or regional communications teams in all time zones. It can mean business management team. It can mean marketing teams. So, and then you go to the sales team. You go to the practical people, the tech people in our organization, and you also need to get the best content out of them. So it kind of means a lot of communication, a lot of creative work for doing the content, and a very good grasp of your strategy, and always having that in mind, because you can easily, working with all the people, working with everyone's agendas and what their main drivers are, you can easily go off track with yours. So there's a lot of managing, but it's also a lot of execution in it. And that's that's one day, and it just gets replayed over and over again.
So I guess are you like managing a team of content creators and then also like coordinating with other stakeholders in the company, it sounds like?
Yeah. Okay. I'm also doing content. I work with people that do content. So everyone pitches in, so to say. I also manage them, but I also create content. It depends. We create from case studies to from strategies to case studies to everything that's really practical and in line with a customer-centric marketing communication strategy. And then all the tactics that have to go along with that content, because nowadays it's really, really hard to, even if you have qualitative and value-added content, if you don't have and you're not going on a multi-channel approach, you can't really have relevant content out there. Everyone has gone digital, and more so in the current context than before. It's like they pressed the acceleration for everyone, even countries that were more traditional. And that means for us that content has to be even higher from a qualitative perspective, and it has to be multi-channeled and communicated everywhere, and it has to be in line. And in line, that's the challenge. You have to have everyone in line. You have to have a coherent and cohesive communication and content, so that, from a customer-centric view, you look at the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe you could give us an example of like a great piece of content that you've produced recently to give us kind of an idea of the kind of content that you usually do.
Well, we have a lot of good case studies. So my initial response would be to tell you to stay tuned, because, I'm in ABB since August last year, and we've prepared a lot of interesting things coming up this year, and we're about to launch them. But if you want to look at something that we've already executed on and we have it out there, it's case studies. Case studies are, for our industry, for a business-to-business communication approach, they're the best content you can have. They're the way through our customers vouch or give their appraisals or their feedback, just their feedback on how we responded to their needs, how our project was executed, developed, and then the results of it. And it's really good to know, not only from a numbers perspective, but also from a communication perspective and the content perspective, because that's what we're talking about. How they're impacted, how they describe it through their words, and how it's seen out there. I think for a marketer, it's the most important thing. And that's why we really value the case studies we get. They're really hard to get. You have to have relevant information. It has to be qualitative, it has to be a quantitative way of looking at it, at the project delivered. And also, you have to have wanting to engage customers that give you the permission for external communications. And therefore, the result you get is really good. So we have on our website, we have a lot of case studies. They're, from a content perspective, they're video, they're audio, they're web stories. So they're only written, and they can be in several shapes and forms. But I think they're the best representation of the work that we do overall as an organization.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for like consistently putting out great case studies? Like kind of like the process for doing it?
Oh, well, tips. That's hard. It's hard because I think the best tip, and this goes back to what we were saying about communication, the best tip is to have good communication with your team first. The local teams we have, they're great. And I don't just mean marketing communication, it's also sales, because they are the point of contact with the customer. And the most important thing is follow up. It's hard to get content because everyone has a lot of other things to do. Most of the people involved in the whole line or the streamlining of this process aren't focused on what you're focused from a communications perspective and from a content perspective. And this means that you just have to go ahead, motivate each person with their own, what works for them, and then actually get to it. And in the end, it's really just a lot of follow-up. Because it's not just, the first draft that you get is just the beginning. It can take a lot of time until you get the qualitative content you want. But for tips and tricks, I think that makes it most. It's always about picking up the phone, not just sending emails and giving, deadlines. It's like talking to the people, understanding what's happening, how it's happening, actually doing a lot of research before going into the case study. It takes down a lot of steps if you do the right research before.
If there was one case study that you said we have to look at that you're super proud of, which one do you think is your best case study right now?
Of course, I'm tempted to say the last one, but it's also interesting. The last one is about a hydropower plant in Switzerland and how we've helped it in its digitalization transformation. So it's mainly based only on digital systems that help them, create hydropower. So it's really interesting. I'm going to give you the link.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put it in the blog post. So
it's also interesting for people generally that aren't necessarily in the industry. That's why I gave this example, because you realize how developed we are actually at, for example, something that's really sustainable for the future in creating power energy from hydro sources. So it's really important to understand that everything, let's say someone from business to business does, has an impact in the end for everyone. And we're contributing to that. So really proud of it.
Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like the case studies are a great way to understand kind of how the technology is actually implemented and used. So, yeah, cool. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think some companies get wrong when it comes to content marketing, or on the flip side, what does it take to get content right? What mistakes do people make, and what's the solution?
Mistakes is, and I'm doing it also, but we learn from mistakes. It's talking more than listening. And in content marketing, you really have to have this. Goes two ways. you really have to be customer centric. So we're not really onto creating content that fits our purposes, our agenda, our strategy. This is what we want to push. It's not product content marketing. It's more on customer needs, product content marketing. So that's the outside in thinking is what most of us do wrongly, and you don't do it consciously. It just happens because you're into the stream and you're so deep into it that at some point you just need a clear head looking at it and saying, this is about you. It's not about the needs. And I think that's what gets wrong most of the time. But it's also the way of disseminating the content. Right now, in the current context, everyone is really pushing digitally everything. It's more focused on how many touch points an end customer has, right? End customer, whatever that means for a B2B or B2C industry. How many times have I pushed this content to him? Did he see it on social media? Great. Now I want to go on TV. Now I want to go on everything, which is great. But in the same time, it has to be relevant. So it goes back. It's so much out there. As an end customer, and if you're customer centric, you realize that the customer is being bombarded through all the tactics that you get from a marketing communication professional. But at some point, it's so bombarded, it creates so much noise that they're not going to look at anything anymore. They're just going to close, done. I'm not interested anymore. It's too much. So then I think it's more important to what the content is, that qualitative part. And we go back to making it from a customer-centric perspective, not from what I want to push perspective. Because in the end, if you nurture that customer and you go with him through the journey, then in the end it becomes to be interested also in the details behind your product or whatever you're selling from a marketing communication.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally agree. I was curious, like in your industry over the past year with everything that's happening, obviously with the global pandemic, like how much has that changed the approach to marketing and the marketing mix and like kind of where you're focusing marketing efforts? I mean, you've implied that things are going a lot more digital, but what's been the implication of that overall?
Well, they were going digital anyways. It was 70-80% digital before the pandemic started. But I did say that we pushed acceleration. Right now, it's really, really getting close to 90 and something digital. So we're not anymore focused so much on traditional because you really can't go out there with traditional. People don't get it. They're not physically. They're not going to be in touch with it anymore. So,
but by traditional, 90%. You mean like in-person events and in-person interaction?
Exactly. For us, events right now have become digital, which switched the whole thing, which can mean not only conferences and things like that, but also it means webinars. And then again, you go to content because everyone's doing webinars now. So if before you had events in which, we have a Hanover event, for example, where we also participated, and everyone was like, you have to go there, you have to be present physically, who can go, and things like that. From a customer perspective, now you have it digitally. So now it has just become much bigger, but in the same time, in real direct competition with everything else that's out there. You don't have the boundaries anymore. You don't have restrictions anymore. So really hard. And also it's in the same time, it's really fast on educating people to get used to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously you miss the social, and when I say traditional, you have, live interaction with the customers. You can get your hands on first hand information from them. How is it going? What does it impact you? What doesn't work? What does work? Things like that. Now you have to request it. It's like that proactive thing that not always works. It's in the same time they're becoming educated into, and there are a lot of countries that aren't so digital, so into digital tactics and into digital responses from them, which not usually you weren't so open to digital. Now you have to be. So it's changing, but yeah, I guess it's just a normal development, faster than it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of different geographies, like so you're kind of responsible for creating content globally, I imagine. So like, how do you make sure that that content resonates in all these different markets around the world?
Well, we work closely with the local teams. They know best. Regional teams know best. We never, we never just take into consideration what we want to do. It's more the other way around. We want to help get things done, and that's the idea. We're working closely with them. Local organizations are the ones that are in contact with the end customer. And not only that, but they're really different. So each country, not only regions are different, definitely, but also each country in a region is really different. A country from Eastern Europe is different from a country in Western Europe, not only from a digital perspective, how ready they are. Sometimes they're more ready, or it depends. We also have a language barrier that we need to consider. Everything we do globally needs to have some time to get localized. You need to have translations. You need to have, it's also a cultural approach. What can you do in specific regions of the world and what you cannot do? And we do take into consideration when we do content, when do we launch it? Friday, for example, is a free day in Saudi Arabia, or, it depends. When do you launch things globally so that they fit all time zones, all cultures, or all schedules? How the pictures are done, everything has to take into consideration all the cultures of the world, and they need to be easily then changeable if they need to. So you don't usually locally, you don't have that, specifically what you want to do, you go with it. And it's more clear for you. You have your target clear. For me, the target is really wide. So that means that it's always has to be flexible. If it's not flexible and simple at the same time, because you can imagine that each one of the regions or of the countries has their agenda, has the regional agenda, has the global agenda. Of course, we're in sync and we're communicating a lot for it. But, when I'm developing content, I have to take into consideration everything. And then, a lot of feedback, integrating the feedback, another way of doing it. And then at the same time, you get to the technology issues. So to say, each region uses something differently. For example, you have social media. Twitter works best in the Americas. WeChat works best in China. LinkedIn, Europe, and then maybe so-and-so US. It depends,
Yeah.
You have to, consider all of that when you do a communication plan and the content plan, because the content comes with, and it's really different. Even if they're social media, they're definitely different structures.
So when it comes to those like different social media channels or different content channels in different markets, I mean, you have local people working on those, or you're managing that all at the corporate level?
No, we do have the local teams. Yeah, because it's the most important thing is to be in the local language, and they know their target. They know what to pick from our campaigns so that it fits their target and their strategy agenda, because strategies are different for each country. Each country is better at something, which doesn't need to be the same thing as the other country. So it kind of depends.
Super interesting. So I wanted to ask you about some of your recommendations. Well, first of all, if you have any like productivity hack you can share?
My productivity hack now during COVID, but generally is the walk and talk. So it's good to get out for a walk, or you don't really have to stay in front of the computer and be online all the time. You can be online anywhere. You can be online during a walk, but it's communication being at the forefront of everything we do, internally, externally, it doesn't matter. It's my best productivity hack. So it helps me not stay in one place and because then your productivity drops if you just stay in front of the computer for 8 hours, right? And you're in calls all day. You're like at your fifth call, you're like, yeah. What did you say? Can you repeat that? Because I'm like, seriously, it's normal, it's human. But then if you go out for a walk around the house and you're in a call, it's a little bit different. So I think it's, for me, productivity hacks means blending now the personal life with the professional life. So, and not, getting stuck in a routine right now.
But how do you do a walk and talk with your phone, I guess? Do you still do a video chat, or?
We don't do video all the time. Sometimes we don't, and it's not mandatory. You can, if you're walking, obviously you're not going to be on video, but you're definitely going to be on sound. Mm-hmm. So, and it depends on the meeting, right? Mm-hmm. It depends on what type of meeting you have, but it's good to have a balance, and it's good just to go out, break the rhythm in which you get into during the day. It's really, at some point, it's just doing the same thing continuously, and being alone at home or in the office. Even if you go in the office right now, you're alone because you have to stay like 10 yards away from the other person, and you're not anyway socializing, and you're like 10 people on a whole floor. So it helps. Otherwise, I don't know, productivity can drop if you're not doing proactive things to increase it. Mm-hmm. Conscious things.
Yeah, to kind of like stimulate yourself outside of the computer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take that tip, I think. I also do a lot of video calls. So, well, any favorite software tool or app right now?
Yeah. Professionally, Salesforce. Just because, you can do everything with it. Yeah. Personally, Strava, because I'm a runner. I jog. I do a lot of sports. It helps me keep sane, an open mind, and a lot of it. It really pumps up the energy levels. Then I go back to work, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. We're killing it today. But Salesforce from a business perspective, and McKinsey app, because it has really good news, a really good view, messages. They usually get it right, so they're good inspiration. And Pinterest, to be honest, although it's only visual, I can find inspiration there all the time for anything. It professionally, at home, it's I think it's my go-to app when I need to kill time or just to, loosen up. Yeah.
Cool. Well, what's a favorite marketing or business book?
Well, it's Simon Sinek's Start With Why, because it's the core of everything. He's really spot on. It's the core of everything, professionally and personally. In private life, I'm trying to implement it in private life also. But starting with why can really increase your productivity, your goals, reach, and everything you have. I'm a person that works on objectives, and I need to have goals. So, and then I reach them. And, starting with why do I, and then getting to the how. Love the book. So
he's been
yeah.
really popular on the podcast lately. He's been mentioned a couple of times, just like in the past couple of weeks. So it's great minds think alike, I guess, or follow great
and
thinkers.
it's a back to basic. It's that simple thing no one ever says, but someone said it. So yeah, great.
It's true.
Good.
Awesome. Well, then also just to wrap up, just wanted to ask if like any resources you recommend for marketers, either like communities, publications, podcasts, anything you think people should follow to kind of like stay up to date on marketing stuff or connect with other marketers.
Real life, just kidding. So I think resources for marketers for me are always events. I have Brand Minds is an event that it's an annual event that it's amazing. It just brings together all the marketing leaders and communication leaders out there. I also follow up with the LinkedIn resources. Coursera is a go-to website when I want to stay up to date with things. But community-wise, I'm just following every podcast that right now I'm a podcast person. So everything that's a podcast on the subject I'm listening to just because it's easy to listen. So, but community-wise, LinkedIn.
Awesome. So, okay, well, we're reaching the end of the interview. So just wanted to ask if you have any parting advice or final takeaways to share with us, with other marketers across Europe.
I would like just to stay in touch. I think it's very good that we we are collaborative, that we share information, that we help each other become better. I'm usually a team player, and that's how I usually see things. I believe in competition to make you better, but at the same time, you have to have who to compete with. So that's why it's really important for all of us to grow together. Otherwise, I think it's pointless, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my.
Yeah, great. Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks so much, Irina, for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you also, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to everybody for listening in. For more perspectives on content marketing in Europe, check out veracontent.com/mix and keep tuning into the podcast for more interviews with content experts. See you next time. Bye.